for a client particularly, like because they don't actually need to see all the detailed instructions on the template per se. So you may want to do it differently, and you may want to keep it a little bit cleaner, meaning less instructions. But the idea behind this was that I wanted to provide as much as instruction possible, so that even someone who has never ran a design sprint before would be able to get this template, have all the little instructions step by step, even small explanation, like even like Mural tips, like what are some of the tips and tricks, is all embedded here. I'll just run through very quickly of like what this template actually conducts. So I also wanted to have a little team section. So like it would put in, people can put in their LinkedIn profile, identify their different time zones, because we are working globally, so virtually and globally. So people actually have different time zones, what are their roles, and even like where we are going to meet. So that was the idea. And then of course also include like a sprint schedule where people can check items off when they finish it, and even a slot choose, so that when the interviews are and so on.
So it could act as kind of like it could act as a way of kind of seeing what was going to be happening throughout the week, or what was kind of coming up, correct?
Like what has been done and what is the next step. So that was the idea. So oops, the render engine is too fast. You just like
well, you're used to like the chunkiness, so it's like, yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like sometimes like I feel the engine is rendering faster than my hand right now. Yes, yeah. So
Mural, if you're listening, kind of slow it down. It went too fast. You did do too good of a job. You got to. This is way too fast for us. Seriously.
Yeah, and like you can see here, I even would put down some like instructions, some really minor instructions. Say drop your recording file or link here, and then for people to actually listen to them, you need to double click on the link to actually download the file or open the link. So like really down to the basic details is all there. And for me, what was important is that in every exercise, we include like a reference material section, so then you don't need to go back and forth on each single thing and then trying to figure out. Because for me, what is important is before each step, we want to remind everyone what the actual challenge was, what is the problem statement, the how my reads and long-term goals. Otherwise, when we just have the big challenge in our head every single time, then all this stuff can get very easily misaligned. So for me, that was very important to like repeat the same section again and then build on it. So you will see also like in the end, we'll have a little bit bigger section there. Also, you may wonder, like, why do I even need a little square for like temporary space for how my read cards or something? This space looks a little bit like random, but actually we tested it throughout the whole, I think it was the first week, first month, when we ran like 15 of Lightning Decision Jam to figure out which was the optimal space between the group cards to where they actually should put in their cards, so that it's easy access for them to click on it and drag to the top, but it's not so close that it like the row would go down too far and collide with the actual cards at the bottom. So like we even went to all that small details.
There is something called affinity diagramming fatigue, which I started to see people kind of suffer from, where you had to do like 3 or 4 in a row in an LDJ, and we're like, oh, more cards, I got to sort them out. And so it's like literally, I could feel like the drain happening after like the 3rd or 4th one, where we had to mix it up and do like cluster affinity diagramming and bypassing it all together and just throwing caution to the wind and having people vote on it. So yeah, I remember all of this. So what we're seeing right now in this particular version is like day 1. And then down below, you also have day 2, day 3, day 4, literally like had every single day of the design sprint kind of mapped out with all sorts of instructions, literally high detail. And the thing is that every single one of these things had instructions on the right. So it had like, it had emojis, it had instructions on how to do things. It was highly detailed, highly involved.
very,
So,
very
yeah.
detailed. Like you can also see like, because some of the exercise we actually bring it offline. So we also color code them, gave them the time, estimate the time. And also like I created this little linking element so that it's one big part of exercise, but we broke it down into online and offline. So it's still linked together, but it's actually, it's linked together, but we broke it down into two different exercise. So that was the idea. And also we incorporate like emojis and stuff for voting. Yeah. So,
and the idea is that basically this is going to be one flowing document that literally the team can go back to it every single time and just use this so that they didn't have to go to separate days. They could pretty much go all at it at the same time. But what did we discover when we tried doing this?
Yeah. So I can show you. I don't know if it will even work. So right now, as I mentioned, I have the performance boost engine turned on, which you can see here is the beta. That's made it actually possible to even open this Mural. So if I turn it off, I don't know what will happen. It might just break. Let's see.
It's going to get extremely chunky.
Like
I mean, they made improvements
like,
since then, so it's okay. But back, if you imagine a year ago, it's like working off of like an older version of Windows. It really struggled, and we were hearing it loud and clear from facilitators, from everybody. It's like people who didn't have updated computers would sit there and go, "I'm just seeing nothing but a little update at the very top of the window," and it was kind of like. I felt bad because it was like this, you literally had to like put these in separate pages, but it could have, at the time, it could have acted as like a central like source for everything that's there. But it could be worth revisiting in November in having that single source of truth like you do now. So literally it's just the dark version of this. So Sandy, if you want to cut your losses short, you could just basically say, okay, background dark, and then you're done with this one, because it has literally everything you need outside of some updates that we did with a couple other ones. So
it was just impossible at that moment, especially like what you see here is an empty board, actually, like empty meaning the exercise not even there yet. So when it's also just me here in the board right now. So if there are more people and if we start putting in the solution sketch and stuff like that, it's going to slow it even more. So it was just at that time was not even possible to use. So what we have decided on was that we went on a very lo-fi. Let's see if I can bring it up quickly. We went on like a lo-fi. We called it lo-fi, right? I remember.
Yeah, that was my version of it. I just basically said, okay, let's take out all the additional design details, and you just do a search for lo-fi, and it should bring it up.
Right.
Yeah, there it is. I see one. There's one. Day 5's right there. If you get out of the search, see GVDS Lo-Fi Day 5.
This one.
Yep. Day 5 would probably have like some of the artifacts of all the other things. So it took the same metaphors that you had in the first time around. Only what we did is we took the graphical banner out, and then we used the top row as kind of a historical narrative on everything that was done, so it could still be persistent in terms of the information that you would share and pass to from day to day, and then you can keep track of it. But then the individual days would have just those activities involved. So it was kind of a way for us to still maintain some historical narrative while keeping the focus on what was going on in the teams for those particular days. And I think it did okay. I mean, for the most part, people stopped using the top because it was like a redundant copy and paste, where people just started referring back to the old murals, and it was fine.
What was tricky was that like in the original design, it actually made everything very easy to move around. So like, let's say if I don't finish the exercise in day 3 as I should, the team should, then, well, probably not day 3 because there's only one session. But like if we during day 1 we don't finish the sprint questions, we can actually easily just move this thing down to the bottom, or just cut it out there and then say, oh, now we begin from here. But what was tricky when we break it down into 5 days template was that like it's almost like set in stone, that we have to finish all the exercise during this day to actually finish the mural. So that was a little bit I guess challenge. Of course, like people can still say, I'll just stop here and then use from here tomorrow. But then most people will feel like they feel like they should actually finish the whole mural before starting the next day, and that kind of rush people a bit sometimes. I felt during the last sprint, last GVDS.
Yeah, it's a dynamic I've seen also where it feels like some of the days here people interpret them as assignments. They have to get everything on that mural done in that day. Like if you do not do it like this, then your design sprint, your virtual design sprint is a garbage heap, and or it's just not going to be where it needs to be in terms of the overall timeline. So I don't know how to change that. I know that this time around I tried to make it so that we embrace the customizable nature of how we went about things, especially with the introduction of prototyping. So it's still an open question as to how it works. Although I'm starting to see for week 3, there's been discussions I just had recently with Matt about asynchronous communication and working in the design sprint mode so that you're optimizing for people's preferences for online, offline work and kind of maximizing to that, but trying to figure out a happy medium for everything. So there's these conversations that are happening around like not traditional design sprint stuff, but experiments that people are willing to undertake.
Right. Yeah.
So now we're looking at the GVDS showcase template, which took from the original like yellow and blue design that you had kind of constructed. You want to get into this real briefly before we get into the 4.0 one?
Yeah, so at the end of the GVDS, we actually invite all the team members to showcase their ideas and their results of what they have accomplished. So what I have here is templates that are provided to all the team members, all the teams, so they can easily just pop in their ideas. And I went in a very bright colors this time because I thought, hey, why not? It's the end of the design sprint. So there are different reasons. Like I actually purposely don't want to make this the sprint week one, where we actually need to work on, too colorful. Not that I don't want them to be happy. It's more because you actually have to stare on the screen for a long time. So I always be a little bit more conscious on that. That's why you see much less colors versus like this one here, which is more showcasing the team. And then I thought why not make it more fun that way? Here, like the approach that I have here is that also you can see the headings from really far away. That is actually what Mural structure was really meant for at the beginning. So it's almost like Google Map, like where you zoom out and then you see only the high level of details or high levels of titles, and then you actually will zoom in to get more details. So yeah, like this is more, I added a little bit more visuals here, how you, what was the problem statement, and then like how a little step where we actually went through to go to the main goal, and then a little bit placeholder for the solution in the end, and also the highlights for the user testing, and then went in some just comments or a word to say or highlights from each team member, and a little Q&A section. So that was a little bit different approach than the actual working mural. And also one thing I wanted to mention is that like this little colors are actually made with shapes, and I locked them so then it gave that colors. The reason that I don't like to do it on the actual working mural is that because sometimes when you have a sticky and then you send it back, then that sticky will actually went under these shapes. So then you cannot really get it back unless you unlock everything and try to send back and forth front. And that can be very tricky. So for me, like a little showcase mural, that's totally fine because we are not really working in it. But for a working mural, I try to avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I wonder if that's something that Mural's updated where you lock a background or you lock something and you because it's locked, you can't place something behind it. I think that's still there because I remember that I've had to unlock things where there was something hidden behind it. So I think it still respects the layer attributes of some of the elements. So yeah, I think that's still there. Okay, so let's look at the ones we're currently working with now, the illustrious 4.0 versions, the dark mode. I wish I
Right.
had the Empire Strikes Back theme that was going on with it. So what we're going to be looking at here is what teams are currently engaging with in week 1 and starting up in week 2. So this has a completely different look and feel than the other ones, in that I hope you're not in a deep depression when you did this, and that you're not trying to communicate to the outside world that something's very, very wrong, or that you're really starting to, go under with all the pandemic stuff. But go ahead and get into your thoughts around why you did the template the way you did, and kind of get into your design approach a bit.
Right. Well, definitely was not because I'm locked down and feeling depressed, but it was more because it has been very interesting for me, because I work in an enterprise software company, and more people are asking for dark mode, because these people normally, when we our clients, when they use enterprise company, meaning that they will actually sit in front of the computer for really, really long hours. And that actually was the trigger for me to say, hey, we actually, when we do a design sprint, we like every day is going to sit in front of the screen for many hours a day during the sprint. And plus, because we are now during the lockdown and everyone is forced to work from home, and we are already every single day facing the computer much longer than what we used to. All our meetings now are moved to online, and then like all the human interactions are basically online. So we are already spending much longer time each day on the screen. So I was thinking, hey, why not this time change it up and give our eyes a little bit ease? So I just thought, okay, how do I make a dark mode for the GVDS? Obviously, like if they don't like the dark mode, I thought, hey, they could still use the GVDS 3 templates, which is still available, but having a second version that could allow the team to work for longer hours and not feeling pain in their eyes, I just thought that could be a good option. So that's the whole story why I went in the dark mode. I personally have not had a lot of experience designing in dark mode, so I actually did some research on what is the best practice. Do I really need to turn everything black and white? And apparently, like not really having like a dark black is actually the better way. Like you can see, this gray is not actually like 100% black. It's almost 100%, but it's not. And that actually is going to ease your eyes even better. That's based on my research. So I hope I hope that the research was correct. But the feedback I have gotten so far, the team actually used the dark mode, seems like it actually helped them. So which is a good sign. And some special features I have here would be like this thing, like a little time zone converter. Like because we are working globally, so the time zone converter is very important to me. I always refer to it. When I say, oh, 3 p.m. in Europe or Germany, it doesn't mean that it's 3 p.m. in the other side of the world. So that comes handy. So people can just like click on that link, and then it will open the time zone converter that way. And then I also incorporate a little videos to edit the instruction on how to use this Mural, which is also, you can just open this link and it just jump to my YouTube channel with that video there. And this little features, I don't know actually if people are using it. I haven't gotten really a lot of feedback from it. But the idea is that because, what really bugs me often is that the original idea of having everything in one place, we cannot really do now. So I was thinking, how can we actually still link each mural so that it makes sense and still get the flow? This is completely like a little test for me, because it's a little bit more advanced feature on Mural, I would say, because not many people like to do this kind of linking. So it was a little bit experimental, but the idea is that like you can actually create a link and then have a little button, and then when you click on it, it will jump to the next day's Mural that way. And then you can, yeah.
I would be curious to know if people are using it too. I almost wonder if there should be just like similar to the white wording at the top. You go like, click this button for day 2. Like literally you have to be that like explicit, because different people will see it in a different fashion.
Yeah, and I don't know if the facilitators actually set that up too, right? It's a lot of time is up to the facilitator if they actually would incorporate the link there. So I don't know, I haven't gotten much feedback on it. But here, same concept. So like having the reference on the top so people can refer them back and forth. Originally, I had a little button here, can also keep referring back to, like when you click on it, it will jump right here. So then you can read the problem statements and the challenge easier that way. But then I took it out because I thought, well, I thought that every facilitator will actually try to link all the small elements every single time when they open a new mural. So then I decided to not to have that. And I thought, well, it's not that far away anyway. So I left that little idea out. But another feature I have here is this, I don't know the exact term. I don't know if there is an exact term, but I call it a progress bar. So it's color coded. So if it's offline, then you get a little light gray color. If it's online activity, then it gets a darker gray color. And if the exercise is corresponding to the current mural that I'm looking at, then it gets the orange color. So the idea is that, so let's say I finished the day one, then now the facilitator can go to this process bar and then look at this very, very quickly and say, okay, day two, we do the mapping, but in between, I need to brief the team before I break the session to tell them that they need to do the lightning demo exercise. So that's kind of act as a reminder and also for the team to see the process. Alex said that breadcrumb navigation. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was the idea.
I really like the gold that kind of indicate where it was. I almost think those things could be accented a little bit more, like some sort of like somewhat of a raised background, like a slightly lighter background that just kind of puts some visuals on there, just because the breadcrumb navigation seems to work. But I would almost darken out for me, I would darken out the ones that aren't in anywhere near or impacting this particular day one, so that they could almost be like black with white lettering to reflect the other elements that you have here. But that's just me being the design, putting on my designer hat and going, if I was the designer, I would do so.
No, but those are great feedback because I realized after so many hours of working on the templates, I kind of went blind already. I don't even see many things. So yeah, those are the stuff that I need. Yeah, and the idea is also like it's up to the facilitator, but the idea is that they can create little links also, so it will jump back to the other templates. So if they did a team kickoff and use another mural, then they can click on this link and then go back to the other mural very quickly. But again, it's really up to the facilitator if they want to link all this stuff. Yeah. And what else? Yeah, so
have you been seeing some of the modifications that have been going on by people like Lisa Weinsberger and Alex Bach and others, where they've kind of either annotated what you've done or kind of improved upon it? Like I've seen one where that breadcrumb navigation has like all these little details for each one, like notes for each one, where literally it becomes like a diary or digital diary of what happens from day to day.
That's cool. Yeah. The thing is, like, I actually had to be very, very careful when I wanted to incorporate more details. You can see the reason that I took out all the instruction on the mural itself was because I want to be super mindful with the performance of the mural. I don't want people to struggle with a slow mural when they try to work on it. So I try to eliminate any. I had a lot of different ideas. That's what I tried to say. I had a lot of different ideas. I wanted to add more details, but I purposely stopped myself from adding a lot more stuff to it. Like I would love to have the team pictures and all that stuff, like a little timetable, what we are working on and so on. But I took them out because I didn't want people to have a slow mural. And to me, when running a design sprint, the performance of the mural is actually the most important thing because the online time is so valuable. We only have a few hours every time, every day. So I don't want people to struggle on that. So that was my idea. Yeah. And I knew that when I give this template to other people, they will start adding stuff to it. So I actually have to take my templates a little bit, even a lower level So allow still a little bit room for them to add something to it.
I've been thinking that where you have the challenge, the problem statement, and the results every day, it's like the last time, it's that nobody really updates that unless people need it for the context of the exercise that they're doing. Like I'm finding myself saying, okay, this is the information you need to complete this exercise. Like with the prototyping template I did the first time around, people were just stuck because they couldn't figure out how to do the XYZ in relation to the what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so each exercise actually has like really detailed instructions here. And this is actually from Ming Lee's idea. So he said like both some of the keywords. So it's very easy for the facilitator to scan through the instructions. And I thought that was really good idea. And you can see like it also gives the online or offline, how much time is supposed to take. It's just an estimate. And then also provided more information. It can be a YouTube link, or it can be a article or something that actually explain in even more details of the exercise. And one reason that I actually removed the time on the mural itself, I know there are different arguments to that, but the reason that I took it out and move it to the outline, because I want to allow the facilitator to have some flexibility on the time. So when you put it right on a mural, then people or the participants would kind of stick to the time, or they would argue, hey, you're not giving me more time, or you're giving me less time. And as a facilitator, my experience is that actually that time is just a guideline. And I often, when I run out of time, I would try to make the next exercise a little bit faster or different ways. And I don't want to put the time here on the mural itself to become restrictions. So I put it there and was more like a guideline for the facilitator that way.
Frank was asking how much time does it take to design this type of template?
The first one normally takes the longest because I actually have to do different research. 18 months.
18 months. Well, if you sign up, yeah. Some people take that long.
So the whole,
no, I'm kidding.
I think the whole 5-day, actually 5-day mural plus the retrospective took me probably, I think maybe 7 hours in total. But that includes the initial research, like how do I do it dark mode, and also this was also a inspiration from a little image element that I got. So I actually had a little mood board going on to figure out or just get some inspiration. So that includes that as well. And also it includes the instructional video that I did in the end, to which I added to the mural button here, that you can jump to the YouTube and watch how to use this template. So from the whole 6 murals plus videos plus research, I think around 7 hours or maybe 8, somewhere around that. Yeah.
2 days cumulatively, like to kind of get things where they need to be.
Yeah.
And Jerome asked this, and I was asking the question. I was thinking the question also. It's like, he says, curious that the need for details is also dependent upon being a starter or an experienced facilitator participant. I think that's something that could be where if we had the time, we would make a streamlined version where it's just for experienced facilitators, and you have one that literally takes what you put in the outline and puts it into each of these exercises. The problem would be is that you would always compensate for the lowest common denominator, since we have so many new people to virtual design sprinting. That's just going to be the default. It's just something you have to do, because I have one person on my team that is completely new, and I'm respecting the fact that they're very intelligent, but they need to understand things piecemeal, like bit by bit. So yeah, I thought that it might be interesting to take some of the artifacts you have at the top that we have to repeatedly put in, like the challenge, problem statement, top 3, how many weeks and sprint questions, and making a cheat sheet. So making something where it's linked to the top, but that is literally the history of everything that the team has done, and that's always referred back to when doing these exercises, so that the link itself can be something, if you want to check out your team's details, do it here, and it can be a simple link. Therefore, that entire band up there, you can take out those 3 elements that are up top, and literally like make this like a little bit even more condensed. I guess I'm into like,
hey, then I lost the space. to have this little.
Well, come on now. You can also put that in different places. Unless design-wise you want to put it there, then that's fine. I tend to be a minimalist by nature with design, so that's fine. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for the people that are listening in and been patiently waiting on the other side of the fence. If you want to join us on this side and have a conversation about the designs that Sandy's done, or anything related to the templates, or if you're in GVDS, you want to explain your experience with them, you just have to raise your hand, and we'll bring you on over, and you can have a chat with us.
Yeah,
and
I would really love to hear some feedback on the dark mode or the navigation bar or breadcrumb that you guys I put in, because that was quite experimental for me.
Yeah.
So would love to hear anything like that.
So definitely bring Jerome over. He's somebody that definitely has an opinion about things. But that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's just Jerome. So he's going to have a particular statement or a point of view that he wants to bring around. So Jerome, you're in the GVDS right now, and you're part of the Talent Sprint Initiative. Your reputation precedes you. You're also part of the VDS Collective in terms of over there in the Netherlands and Europe, kind of starting up virtual design sprints. I can go on, but let's talk templates and with how you've been kind of working with these. Kind of give us your point of view on things.
Yeah. First of all, this is not orchestrated at all, so I don't want to misabuse that. But I think we should really give credits to Sandy in, let's say, those 18 months. I was not joking with 18 months, but with 18 months of learning. And I think the templates might be built in 7 hours, but I think the learnings that she has brought together on GVDS 1, 2, 3, and all the experiences in between, is in the end the result of what we see now and how we're benefiting it, I think, all of this in this event again. But that was my highlight, talk about the dark mode. What I really experienced in the last week in working with the team that I'm on is that the dark mode helps me physically. Just being behind the screen that is not continually burning on my eyes. So I have to say that I really appreciate the experiment, at least, of bringing a dark mode alive and see how that's impacting me. I feel less tired after 2-3 hours being on a session than in GVDS 2 and 3. Maybe it's me, maybe it's my glasses, but definitely I experienced in a positive way. So that's what I wanted to mention.
That's good.
And the other part is performance-wise, I'm always a nightmare with my performance in Mural boards, and I think I have the worst hardware possible. So Sandy has been testing a lot of the templates with me over the last couple of weeks. And I have to say, these work as well. There's relatively light. There are some extremes on day 3, maybe, when you bring in all the concept boards and all the concept sketches. We started to offload, let's say, really load our hardware again in our team. But in general, I have to say it's smooth, even without using the prototype booster mode that I have from Mural already to boost my template. But I feel that that's cheating. So I don't want to talk about it. That's a cheating mode at this moment. But I have to say I appreciate the experiment during this GVDS with the dark mode in different ways. So yeah, thank you for that.
You almost see that Shazam button as a challenge. Like if it's chunky, it's like, oh, I should have designed better. And you really don't say like, oh, I'll hit the Shazam button, I'll feel better. Because it's not like the standard yet. So you're kind of like going, well,
yeah, it's true. It's true. When I actually decided the whole template, I turned the Suzanne off because I actually wanted to experience what other people would experience without that. And yeah, actually I forgot to mention also, it's true that it's not just like 7 hours of work, because we actually did a lot of different testing, even during GVDS 2 too, like GVDS 2, GVDS 3, and then now. So we actually did a lot of different testing. I remember last GVDS we even ran like a experimental performance experiments. Like we got a group of people together, and then we test out different Mural and then see what browsers or what hardware they're using, and then which one is faster, and then they put in their heat on saying, okay, this is working, this Mural is not working, and so on. So yeah.
Yeah. Adrian, you're also with us as well. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself really fast and give Sandy some feedback and your perspective on these templates.
Awesome. Thanks. Keep up the good work, Robert and Sandy. I'm an experienced design lead within the Dell Chief Customer Office. I have two questions. How does Summon work for users that are using iPads? And I'm only asking because I've seen users that are on tablets versus users that are on laptops that Summon doesn't work as well for them. Do you guys have any experience with that?
In terms of the context of working within Mural?
Yes, like if I press Summon and I have users that are on tablets, I've heard feedback from them that that doesn't work for them.
It doesn't summon them at all. That just basically they stay in their particular mode.
Exactly.
This is the kind of thing where I wish I had the Haley Temple super button where I get to press her. She suddenly
It's funny because I've asked Haley and Mark and I haven't heard back from them. But anyway, that's that aside. When we put together these really big templates, what do you think has a bigger impact in terms of the lagging performance of Mural? Is it number of participants or is it number of complexity of objects and things that we put on the Mural?
Number of objects.
Yeah, the number of objects
actually both.
Yeah. For me, I would say the number of objects and the person's computer. So I've seen a correlation between somebody who has a 2 or 3 year old computer and someone who's working within Mural. Because even with the optimized ones that we had made before, there's still a couple of people where they go, okay, I'm still waiting for my screen to render or something comes up. So it's kind of a handshake between those two things. But if you want a perfect example, the master mural that we created to kind of get ready for one is a litmus test. And they actually use that page in Mural to kind of test up their new rendering engine. So I forwarded to them when I was creating it. That has over 120 LinkedIn profile images. That has a lot of different elements related to the challenges and voting and keeping track of what people are doing. So this was like a central focal point for me to kind of figure out where everything was. And of course, since it's open, it looks like somebody's already changed the bottom part. There you go. That works. And I'm still using it for some of the promotions for the teams that I'm on team 3 and I have 8 more to do before the end of the week. But essentially that was something where I said, okay, here's something that has easily over 300 to 400 to 500 elements. Try this out with your beta and see if it's actually working the way it does. So this is a classic example of something that would test the boundaries of what's possible.
Yeah. And the other thing is also depends on how close you're zooming in your area. So if you zoom very close and you work on just a small area, typically you won't really have a big problem. Most people start experiencing problems if they zoom out a little bit and then actually the browser has to render everything else outside what you are really working on, and that could also cause a problem.
Thank you both. And again, keep up the great work. This is amazing, both of you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah. And I'm still looking forward to that modified LDJ template that you've been creating. I still want to see some ideation and some composites of that. So hopefully if you get that together, start putting it through its paces, especially with the giant wheel of feeling, as I call it, at the very beginning, just is how people who are being sincere and people who would actually troll you in terms of how that would work. I don't know. I do want to see like it experimented with. So I hope I see that in the future.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay. Let's see here. What time do we have left? We have 10 minutes. Yeah, now we're looking at the master board. So if you want to, we're talking about the design of the GVDS. This is probably something that's happened to every single one. And I've modified it every single time, with this one being interesting in that I didn't go after the last time so I'll step to the stage a little bit. In GVDS 3, when I did this, I bracketed people by their self-declared role in terms of like what they wanted to do. So it was design, facilitation, research, advising. But instead, what I did is I took a look at their people's LinkedIn profiles and I figured out, okay, what's their nature? What do they tend to gravitate towards? Or where is their professional career kind of taking an incline? So I looked at all of the profiles and said, okay, for some that have a design background but are clearly into leadership or clearly into directing, they belong in a different space than they were. Or if they're seen by GVDS as being top-notch facilitators or people going into this space, there's a sub-selection of those folks over here on the left that know how to do this and do it well. So my thinking around this was just to basically put people in the proper kind of arena so that if people wanted to kind of network with one another, I could point them and say, here's some people that kind of play in your same space. Double click on their profile, see if it's something that you want to have a start conversation with. And it was meant, the purpose was meant to kind of put like against like the tribes of like disciplines in the same space. And it was an easy way for me to kind of start building out some promotions for them on the left, which I started and didn't finish with Team 4, and say, okay, here's their body of work, here's what they're doing. If you want to check out what they're doing, then go here. So this is a convenient way for me to kind of keep track of everyone that's coming in. And people are still coming in. I'm getting referrals for week 2 and week 3 now. So I'm going to be updating the board even more. And I think, Sandy, do you want to like deviate a little bit from this after we're done and show the map that we asked people to kind of put their what is it? Their like their location is? Yes. Yes. There's the lack of sleep. It's like, yeah, not drinking, it's lack of sleep. Trust me on that. So yeah, we ask people to basically put themselves on a map when in relation to where they're located. This is completely optional. So this is a way of taking what you just saw in the previous mural and putting it within the confines of where people are located. So this is something that we'll kind of showcase towards the end of the event and just see where people have kind of placed themselves.
But obviously,
so yeah, this is another version.
Put it in there.
Yeah. And some people have kind of put, I think it was a mix of not only where they're located, but where they want to be. And there's some kind of artifacts to show like where somebody would want to go on vacation or where they've been. But this is like an interesting way of showing how people are kind of self-designing their experience with, showcasing where they are in relation to other people.
Is this available already?
Sorry?
Go ahead, what were you going to say?
Is this available already?
Yeah, it's on.
When you first
didn't read the
signed
email,
up,
did you?
There's an orientation email. You know the orientation, Jerome, when you kind of figure out where you're going to be going in the GVDS?
Yeah, you know the 5 emails that Robert sent out every day.
Yeah, I'm an over communicator. I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
Well, while we are on this mural, I want to mention one thing. So if you see here, this is the whole background is actually one single image. And you can see this little white gap here. It was not a mistake. I did that on purpose because when this board, if I like pull it at the back and I have an image on top, there's no way I can get the board back. And this was a trick for me to actually still can get it back in case someone moved it around. So.
This is actually something that I wish Mural would do with some of their stuff, in that I wish these would be 2-dimensional rather than flat. So that right now you can click on any person's picture here and get their LinkedIn profile, which is what they're linked to. But I would love to have it so that there's a flip side of this. Like it's almost like literally a card. You flip it over and it's got other information about what you're looking at that you can basically use for different purposes, development, agile, all sorts of things where there's some API or connections to it, so that this could be something that could live as an artifact from GVDS, where if somebody registers, then I can put an API through Typeform and let people know that they are now active for the next event or something like that. Something that showcases where they can go. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I've been kind of banging the drum on this in Mural to say, like, you got to make these cards more kind of self-intelligent in terms of how they can interact with things. Because I think the extensibility of what people are doing with this needs to kind of come to the fore, because people are going to be asking for it if they aren't already.
So I had a call with the head of the product in Mural, I think a couple of weeks ago, and he shared the roadmap of Mural with me. And he was mentioning actually they had a lot of different ideas and a lot of things that they wish they could have done. But the thing that was actually preventing from adding all these features was their rendering engine. So what that means is once that rendering engine is rolled out, probably in June or something, then they will starting adding a lot of the features that we have been wishing or hoping for, and also they were hoping for. So we'll see. Some exciting stuff is coming out already. Seems like so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic that's happening between them and Miro. It's like a race to whoever a race to relevance, who's going to capture the attention of the market more and in different places. So that's going to be kind of cool to watch. So we only have a few minutes left. I want to ask anyone who is paying attention in Zoom or in YouTube, or even Jerome and Adrian, if you have any last thoughts or questions that you want to ask, or any comments. Anything else? I know Alan and Mardea are over on YouTube, so I'm seeing you two. I actually see you that you're over there. I just haven't commented yet. So I want to know that, because sometimes YouTube gets forgotten in the midst of Zoom. But if anybody has any comments, now is the time to say something before we show off for another day, and then get back to what we're doing in the GVDS, I think.
Just a quick note. We, in the face-to-face, in the real world format, we used to have this walk the walls kind of a format where you put like slides or you put stuff on it and people come put sticky notes. And I wonder if for the showcase template that Sandy, you were saying afterwards, when everything is said and done and every kind of design sprint is done, maybe there'll be like a walk the mural template or something where people can come and see all the design sprints, all the challenges, all the how might we's, all the ideas, and can just kind of visit with each other in a virtual context.
It's like the GVDS on air, but then all the murals on air.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for reference, Jerome did something amazing last time in 3, and he's starting up at 4, where he literally documented everything that was going on with every single team, the LDJs to the murals to the showcase things. I mean, links to literally every single thing that the teams had done. It was a historical document in the way that it was constructed. And he calls them episodes, but this time around, I think we're doing more of a kind of a community gathering of different links, so that it's not just him kind of gathering up everything. But the one that happened for, there's 4. 3 was just an amazing collage of different stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. 3's good. I mean, sorry, 4's good. 4, I like the dark mode in that one as well.
Yeah, but it's not about the dark mode. But I like what Adrian was saying. Let's say having a canvas or having a place where you can see what the others are doing. And in this case, it was, let's say, video content and mural boards. But almost like having that indefinite wall space where everybody can showcase their own journeys. It's almost, let's say, an asset we should be able to create maybe after the event with all the boards that we have available.
You know what I would like to see, and this is just me like putting a wish on the wall. I think there should be an individual that's responsible for streaming and setting up like Restream.io or something else where they're given licenses and they set up in advance the sessions to basically be broadcast on YouTube if the team decides to do so. Sandy's ventured into this. I have as well. But it feels like if there was somebody behind the effort that could do that and basically broadcast so that GVDS on air literally is GVDS on air and becomes a streaming kind of like platform that it's on Twitch or it's on Periscope or something else, but literally it becomes a broadcast of the event as it's happening in real time. We don't have people for that right now. We don't have somebody that is in that position. I would love to do it because I have all the license, I have everything going for it. But that would be for 5. If that could be attained where we do that, then it becomes more of a tuned in experience where on channel 4 or on channel 5, like you have it here, you basically can like tune into what's going on now. And then if not, you can look at the historical narrative and tune into those either on but like through like iTunes, like a podcast, if it's an audio form only or in video. That would be interesting because then you're talking about actual engagement from the outside on what's happening on the idea front for what, domestic violence or sexual awareness or keeping the lights on after a pandemic, all of those different aspects of things. You found number 3. There you go.
Yeah.
It was, there you go. there's the work of art that is GVDS On Air 3. That's what I'm talking about. That is so much detail, the hours, the dates, everything. It was like, it was almost setting up like it made it seem like it was a momentous event. So that's
Actually,
a testament to what Jerome had
it
done.
also
So
have the mural links.
all of them. It has everything in there.
Oh, did I just?
So if there's someone that wants to team up with me that has that knowledge of restream and things, that I would like to take the challenge for GVDS 5. But maybe we can prototype something already in week
5. We are on 4.
Then I say I'll take the challenge of a full event challenge.
Yeah, let's worry about this first.
But maybe we can experiment already during GVDS 4. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
But I think the trickiest part is we need to have people with different time zones, because I don't know how possible that we can have the team just start the button, right? Like we actually have to start the button for them.
Okay, maybe next week. I'm not participating in any sprint next week. I have a GVDS off week, but maybe there are 2 or 3 people that want to do a small, let's say, explorative session with me on this topic, and see how we could experiment during this event, maybe preparing already what we would like to scale up for GVDS 5.
Yeah, I think it would require having a conversation with people that have been in the space about video distribution and kind of content production to understand the level of effort. But I do agree with you that it's worth a conversation worth having and preparing for. Every GVDS, it seems like there's a level up in some area either where we bump it up. Like 4 definitely feels like, though there wasn't as much struggle this time around with facilitation that there was in 3 with what we were doing. Prototype's a new thing, but it's getting there. It feels like 5 is going to be like an upgrade in different places, but it's always teetered on whether or not it's going to get bigger in terms of personnel. And I think that may be where it might, where we're just going to have somebody who takes it on, where they own the thing, but they also get all the accolades. Like they pretty much put themselves on the map in terms of what they want to do for. I know that the whole reason why we had, one of the reasons I had Sandy on the show today to showcase what she did is exactly that. She's the design foundation for the GVDS, and literally there wouldn't be an event without her. So if that same thing, if you take that same thought and you project it into streaming and video, if there was one person that did that if that person wasn't there, it wouldn't exist. That's probably where this thing is gonna take off.
I'll organize something next week, and I'll use the Slack stream GVDS on air as where people can volunteer to participate, and let's have an open brainstorm about what this potentially can mean.
Yeah,
you know that you're on. You know that you're on live, and you cannot say no anymore after this.
That's a little bit of a twist.
It's recorded.
Yeah, and here's an interesting thing. I had a conversation with Matt Pupa, and he's talking about asynchronous communication and exploring the optimal kind of engagement for offline and online work for GVDS or just in general. I state that now because I have a feeling that's going to kind of creep into the conversation as well about figuring out what the optimal engagement is, so that it's not just me saying what hours are going to be part of like a particular engagement. There's a method to saying, okay, based on the personnel, this seems like the optimal engagement, and then it changes the nature of how you do the activities within a virtual design sprint based on the competency and the familiarity with asynchronous communication. But that's a conversation for another day. But that's one of those things where if they want one person behind the effort and really drives it, then everyone else benefits. All right. That's going to do it for Remotely Interesting. We're a little bit over time, but Jerome, thank you for coming on the show and giving your 2 cents and being part of the conversation. Sandy, as always, thank you for showcasing your design work. Like I said, wouldn't be the GVDS without you. And I don't know what I'm doing here beyond being a talking head and looking a little dapper of my say. I took a shower, look at that. So thanks to everyone who tuned in on YouTube, Mardea and Alan, and I think it's just Mardea now. But thank you all for coming in over on the Zoom side, and we'll see you next week with another topic. And take care of yourself. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Keep your distance. And be kind to one another. Okay?
Yes, that's important.
See you all later. Bye, Sam.